Hey there, everyone. It's Jordan Roan, and I am here. Today is Sunday, November 3rd, 2024. We are just 2 days away from the presidential election of 2024 between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And it's going to be one for the history books. We know that. The most consequential election of our lifetime. We hear that, every 4 years? But this one, folks, this is just different. You can feel it. You can feel the vibes are different here. And it really represents the end of an era or really just the beginning of another. Either way it goes, right? If Kamala Harris wins, you are starting an entire new era of Democratic leadership under Kamala Harris, somebody who is young enough to absolutely go and serve 8 years in office, right? The last one to do that was Barack Obama. She has the stamina, she has the youth, the vigor, God willing, that she'll be able to go the distance. She'll be able to represent the Democratic Party and be the new face of the Democratic Party for a long time. I mean, think about it. Right now, we're still kind of in a weird spot where Barack Obama has to keep coming back out on the campaign trail. And by all reports, from people close to him, he doesn't really like that too much. He loves being out there and being able to help the Democratic Party, but he doesn't really necessarily want to continue being the face of the Democratic Party, so to speak. So I think if Kamala Harris is able to win this thing, Barack Obama gets a reprieve. He's able to go a little bit off into the sunset and let Kamala Harris shine. Let her take her rightful place at the top if she wins. And then on the other side, you have Donald Trump, who he's already served his 4 years in office, so at 1 term's down. If he's elected, he'll be a lame duck, literally, as president-elect, which is very rare and something that I don't even know if our modern-day politicians are really familiar with knowing how to deal with that. So he would enter as a lame duck, but make no mistake, he could get so much. How do I word this to be respectful? It can be incredibly consequential what Donald Trump is able to do over the next 4 years. I mean, we're looking at 2, maybe 3 Supreme Court seats that will be opening up in the next 4 years. I mean, we know 2 of them most likely will. And then possibly a third, you just never know, right? So could you even imagine if Donald Trump, his legacy, among many other things, among many other terrible things, if Donald Trump is able to say he put 6 Supreme Court justices on the court, 6 of 9. I mean, that is like, it almost gives you chills to think about that. So take a deep breath. There's a lot going on. In addition to that, though, I will say Donald Trump, he serves his 4 term. He would serve his 4 years. He'd be done in 2029, and then does he anoint? Is JD Vance anointed to take over for him? Is that how this is going to work? I mean, in my back of my mind, we know Donald Trump Jr. was really pushing for JD Vance. Is this something set up where, okay, JD Vance was named vice presidential nominee? Does he bring on Donald Trump Jr. to serve as his VP nominee for the 2028 election if Trump wins in 2 days? That's like catastrophic to think about, that we could go through that cycle all over again. So there is so much at stake when it comes to Donald Trump's election. It's not just he's going to be a lame duck. This is really like a whole new world opening up for MAGA. And it will fuel them even more. Donald Trump his legacy would be going out on top if he wins. It would be going out as a winner, right? And that's what's so important, because right now he is a loser. He lost his last election, fair and square, no matter if he likes it or not. He lost. He is a loser. through the channels of history from this point forward, right? But if he's able to pull off a win, I mean, make no mistake, it will be one of the biggest comeback stories in American political history. I mean, quite frankly, it's him and Grover Cleveland who are able to say that they accomplished the feat of bouncing back into the Oval Office in a non-consecutive term. So it is a massive deal when it comes to a historical perspective. All things considered, who's going to win the 2024 election? Who's going to win? And I'm here today to tell you why. I believe, and this is coming from a Democratic strategist, somebody who has been involved in Democratic campaigns since I was 11 years old, somebody who studies the campaign trail, the polling, the data, the averages, the aggregates, who dives deep into individual swing states to look at what's going on, to gauge the vibe, to see what the pulse is like. Somebody who's from Pennsylvania, who has a deep history in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania when it comes to knowing the terrain, knowing the territory, the counties, the bellwether towns and municipalities. So I have a good understanding of the game, of what's going on. So that's why I'm coming to you, sounding the alarm, ringing all the bells, telling you straight up that Kamala Harris is going to lose the 2024 presidential election. Democrats are not going to keep control of the White House. And it pains me to say that. I'm not taking any joy in saying that. It's breaking my heart to say that, because the progress that we made under Joe Biden, the progress that was made under Barack Obama, I'm afraid is going to be completely dismantled under President Donald Trump, who, based on everything I've studied, based on my full understanding, based on my gut instinct, is going to be elected the 47th president of the United States. As I sit here today, Sunday, November 3rd, 2024, that's my belief. And I want to tell you exactly why I'm saying this. So let's just dive right into it. This is what I believe were and are the biggest issues for the Kamala Harris campaign that swung this in Donald Trump's advantage. And first off, let me just say that the polling data as of right now is a complete toss-up. We see Donald Trump with leads in certain polls, but then Kamala Harris is bouncing back big in the Rust Belt. Nationally, Kamala Harris is up by maybe a point or two or tied. There's allegations out there that pollsters are quote unquote herding their polls, which basically means that they're not actually giving us accurate information. They're crunching the numbers up to make sure that their business doesn't die out, that they're not going to be completely, looking for a new job 2 years and 4 years from now, because they want to look like, well, we came close. See, we weren't off by that much. Because if you say it's a tie, then yes, we know somebody's going to win. So if you say it's a tie and it ends up being a close race, hey, it's a wash, right? No big deal. That's why these allegations are coming out there that the polling is not that accurate. So I'm basing my beliefs, my prediction here, solely, not based solely on the polling data, but other deeper things that I'm seeing. And that's why I'm going to go into this now and lay it all out here for you. So take it for what it's worth. But I am sounding the alarm today before the 2024 election to say Kamala Harris is in trouble. And Donald Trump is being underestimated. And I do think that he is going to win this election. And here's why. Reason number one, immigration. Donald Trump was able to successfully use immigration to his advantage. He was able to emotionalize it, to create a package of fear around the topic and distribute it to the masses. And he did it in every rally, in every situation, every interview he did, he was able to put it out there. Videos, ads, immigration, immigration, immigration. He used real life stories of people who had lost loved ones to undocumented migrants who committed acts of violence and crime. Side note, we know what the facts are, and that is that crime happens everywhere. U.S. citizens commit horrible, violent acts of crime. I see it all the time in my day job, where I work as an attorney. But all I'll say is Donald Trump was able to successfully leverage these crimes, a small percentage of crimes that are committed by undocumented immigrants. And he built it up. And he made it to be an issue that you can't avoid. He went inside people's homes on the airwaves and said, you could be next. Your child could be next. And he was able to build this coalition of people who were seriously hurting. And of course, everyone's heart should go out to those people who lost loved ones due to horrific acts of violence. Donald Trump didn't just send his sympathy, he brought those people on board as part of his campaign. And I watched enough of his events to know that it was the hallmark of his campaign, was these stories that you could be next, that in this country, Kamala Harris, she's the border czar. She is at fault. Now we know Kamala Harris was never proclaimed the border czar, but Donald Trump assigned that to her. The Republicans assigned that to her. And what happened was I don't think that she was able to necessarily break it. She wasn't able to break that slogan. The campaign shifted and focused on other issues. They kind of deflected a little bit to push back on Trump's personality, to push back on Trump's character. But that issue never went away, of her being the border czar, of her being at fault, of her being in charge, of her letting illegal migrants into the country to commit violent acts of crime, of letting them free, as if Kamala Harris was down there near the border, literally taking handcuffs off of people and saying, go, shoo, run away. That's what Donald Trump was able to put into the minds of voters. And when it comes to fear works. Fear works when it comes to campaigns. And I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump instilled more fear into voters' minds. That's reason number one why Donald Trump, I believe, will win the election. Reason number two, the Democratic Party, I believe, severely underestimated the lapse that they have for young male support. The fact is that the Democratic Party is just simply not energizing this demographic. You see it in interviews where people are out on the street talking to young folks. I hear about it. I see some of it. Props to young female voters, to Gen Z females. They're totally up on their game. They're totally energized. They know what happened in a post-Dobbs America and how much worse it can get. And they don't want to go back to that. They want to protect their own rights. But young men, they don't see that. There's an ignorance there, of course, huge ignorance. But the Democratic Party has to go, any party. You got to go to where the voters are. You have to go to them and change their minds. We can't just sit back and expect, hey, you need to respect women, so change your mind, right? It needs to be deeper than that. It needs to be fundamental. You have to go onto college campuses, and you have to go into social media and Twitch and where places where these people are and have the conversations, create content that allows them to hear a different perspective. Like a Joe Rogan type of podcast where they're listening not because they want to, they're not going to watch MSNBC at night because they're interested in politics. No, that'd be the worst thing in the world for them. They go to places, they listen to Joe Rogan, they listen to other places like Barstool Sports, for instance, because they want to hear what they like, which is banter, which is sports, which is sports betting, and politics is just not top of mind for them. But they're compelled by Donald Trump because Donald Trump is not, quite frankly, boring them. Donald Trump is alluring them with his gimmicks like going to work at McDonald's and putting on the garbage truck, garbage uniform. Like those are specific things that are done by Donald Trump for a specific reason. He's going after new voters, young men. The fact is that Donald Trump has a ceiling, and I'll talk about this later. He has a ceiling, 48% of the vote. He's a known quantity for the past decade. There are really no more voters that Donald Trump can tap into and say, hi, I'm introducing myself to you as Donald Trump. Will you come vote for me? That's just not possible. It's not going to happen. Donald Trump really only has one block of voters who he can do that to, and that's young men, 18 to 25-year-olds who most likely are first-time voters in a presidential election. They've grown up knowing who Donald Trump is, and they like the no BS attitude. They like the fact that he's not a stiff politician. They like the things that come out of his mouth. And at the same time, when it comes to polling, I think that young men were underestimated in the polls. What young male is going to pick up the phone and talk to some random stranger for 10 minutes about voting choices, about politics? It's just not going to happen. I mean, I would venture to guess, and I don't know if we'll ever know this truthfully, but I'd venture to guess that there's a decent percentage of young men who, when they pick up the phone, if they pick up the phone, and they hear, hi, I'm with a polling company, they might just yell Trump and hang up the phone. I think that's probably what has happened. Polling companies can't count that. They just can't. So I think that, unfortunately, young men are going to be the ones who really push Donald Trump over the edge. And Democrats need to spend the next 4 years doing a deep dive and figuring out, how do we change our culture? How do we change our messaging to make us cool to young men? Right? Make Democrats cool again. That's the type of thing that would entice them. And it's going to take a lot of soul searching, but I think it can be done. It's going to take some time, and it's going to be helpful that Donald Trump will be out of the picture the next go around. But the MAGA movement still exists, and it still permeates among young men. One of the other things I saw was that young men were underpolled. I believe young white men is the demographic specifically. They were underpolled by 19% in some of the polling data that was recently released. 19% underpolling. It goes back to what I said. I don't think they're answering. I don't think they're engaging. And I think that might be the secret voter of this election. There's always a secret voter. And I think young men are going to be that secret voter. And it's going to help Donald Trump win the election. Reason number 3 that I believe Donald Trump is poised to win the election. So we all know what flyover country was, right? It involved Hillary Clinton not being able to visit, or willfully, or whatever it is. She didn't visit certain states. She kind of flew over the Rust Belt. Remember? Hey, Hillary, go to Michigan. Go to Michigan. Don't forget about Michigan. Didn't go too much, right? So we heard the term flyover country. Kamala Harris and her campaign did a great job at avoiding flyover country, right? They hit the ground in all of these states. I mean, literally the Rust Belt was the number one priority because it was the easiest path to do 70, right? Sun Belt, it had a lot of work on the ground. And of course, Kamala went so frequently to the Sun Belt states as well. So there's no complaints there about Kamala visiting those states, the swing states. Unfortunately, I think something happened, which was the creation of flyover counties. So, for instance, I'm from Pennsylvania, right? Proud Democrat from Pennsylvania, serving on local Democratic committees, state committee as well. Neither Kamala Harris nor Tim Walz visited or held rallies in the heartland of Pennsylvania. And when I mean heartland, pull up a map and draw a heart in the middle of the Commonwealth. You can see maps out there with little dots where they put like where the two major candidates all travel to. Pennsylvania, you see red dots in the middle because Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they hit the center of the state, the heartland of the state. Donald Trump in State College, PA, 2 weeks ago. J.D. Vance in Bedford County, PA, just a couple days ago. You can campaign all you want in Philly. You can campaign all you want in the Philadelphia suburbs. You can campaign in Pittsburgh. And that's what they did. And they did it really, really well. Because they know it's a numbers game, right? Go where the numbers are. But the thing is that those votes in the areas I just mentioned, those votes count the exact same as the votes in Altoona, as the votes in Clearfield County, Indiana County, Bedford County. Of course, you're not going to turn those counties blue. It's going to still be 3/4 of the vote for Donald Trump. But you cannot let those counties get to 85% for Donald Trump. You can't quite frankly, you cannot let yourself bleed out. Pennsylvania has gained a lot of voter registration for the Republicans. I mean, take a look at the difference between 2020 and 2024. Republicans skyrocketed in voter registrations, Democrats plummeted. That's a fact. Now, listen, I don't mean plummeted as in, oh my gosh, there's a massive disadvantage for Democrats. No, Democrats still lead in voter registration. However, it was a big warning sign that I didn't hear many people talking about. The warning sign that, hey, Republicans are gaining a lot of energy in the state, the Commonwealth as a whole. It's getting more red. It's getting more red based on the numbers alone. So why was there not an effort to go to the places where you're bleeding out? You have to stop the bleed. Literally, because blood is red. You got to stop the red. You got to shed the red. Right? 4 years ago, I came up with a little thing called Shed the Red. Like Joe Biden had to really focus on shedding the red margins in those red counties. And he did a great job at doing that. He won the presidency because of it. However, the rural counties who have thousands of independent voters, that their job is to cut down on the red margins, they were not tailored to. They were not visited. State College, home of Penn State University, they got AOC as a surrogate to come and visit. And that's great. And I love AOC. I love all the work she does. But she's not Kamala Harris. She's not Tim Walz. The top brass didn't come. They never showed up. They went to the east and they went to the west. A little bit of stop, I think maybe 1 or 2 stops in Erie. But I think the problem was that they got so caught up in like the bellwethers and so caught up in going to the dense Democratic havens that they forgot about the red tea of the Commonwealth. They forgot about the red tea of Pennsylvania. So they created these flyover counties. They flew over the heartland. And Donald Trump didn't. And if you don't go to Penn State University, and I put this out weeks ago, last month, tagging multiple people with, the Kamala Harris accounts and her spokesperson, please get to Penn State before Election Day. Please go up on a football weekend where there's huge crowds, because Penn State University, State College, PA turns into the third largest town or city in all of Pennsylvania on Penn State football game days. The third largest. You didn't have any of the top 2 candidates go to what was now the third largest city in Pennsylvania on or around game day weekend? No logistics can excuse that. No logistical hardships can excuse that. And I think it was a massive, massive miss. If you have a problem with young men, which the data's out there that you do, Kamala Harris even spoke on a hot mic to Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan at a bar last week. And Kamala Harris said, we need to do better with men. If you have a problem with young men, why are you completely avoiding stepping foot on Penn State's campus, right? If Pennsylvania is the golden ticket and young men is your problem, you got to go out and get those young men. I mean, Tim Walz is the football coach. It's Coach Walz. How was that missed? How is that an oversight? That's reason number 3 why I think Kamala Harris will lose to Donald Trump for the 2024 election. Reason number 4, Kamala could not outrun Joe Biden's unpopularity. Donald Trump successfully merged Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. If Kamala was given manageable projects like childcare or prescription drug reform, and she was tasked with that, if that became her brainchild, her issue, while she was vice president, that she was put in charge of that, and everybody knew it, she would have been so much better off. Because Kamala Harris as vice president, and listen, it's not just her, but many vice presidents have been there as the support for the president, as the second in command. But where I think the vice president can be used so much more effectively is in a project-based approach. I talked earlier about the fact that Kamala Harris was labeled as the border czar, and she wasn't able to really get out of that trap that Donald Trump put over her, the tarp that Donald Trump put over her. So she became labeled as this border czar, and all of that emotional element of immigration and violence by undocumented immigrants was thrown onto her, and that really hurt her. But if she was able to come out and separate herself after Biden dropped out, that question that came up, what are you going to do differently? How are you different than Joe Biden? And the answer, there was no answer there. Surrogates for her, there was no answer there for them. If she would have been able to take over some sort of task and project from the beginning, that Kamala is the drug reform expert, the child care innovation coordinator, like some sort of title for her. She's vice president, but she's also, look at all the things that she has been in charge of. And she can come out and say, I did that. I led that. I put it into action. I made it work. She could have been able to detach herself from Joe Biden's unfavorableness because he's boom. And that's hard. That's hard to be able to detach yourself from. As an incumbent, Joe Biden, of course, would have struggled. But Kamala Harris, she could have had the chance to get herself out from underneath his unpopularity. And I think Donald Trump was able to come out and latch those two together and say they are one people. And she could have had an amazing comeback for that, which is, no, there are differences. Look at the things that I, as Kamala Harris, was able to accomplish. And that could have been more press conferences, more events where she was able to step out into the limelight and get those things on the record as saying, here are my wins, here are my victories. And I don't think that there was enough of those. I do know that when it comes to the border, there was, she wasn't named border czar, but she was given or tasked by President Biden with looking into the issue. I believe that's what it was. I'm going to have Vice President Harris look into the issue. That was a mistake. That was a mistake by whoever came up with that idea. Because at the end of the day, what, you're going to fix immigration overnight in the span of 2 or 3 years? That's never going to happen. And everybody knows that. It's way too complex an issue. Especially when you, as Democrats, have values, have belief systems, believe in giving people a chance to escape from violence and crime and being able to have a refuge, right? That's what America's all about. We have always been the refuge. But unfortunately, somebody's idea was to give her, put some involvement on the record, saying Kamala Harris is now involved with immigration, and that really hurt her. It should have never happened. That was a horrible thing to put onto her. And of course, she had no ability to accept or deny it if it's coming from the top. So I think that was a really unfortunate thing that happened for her when it comes to managing the duties of the office of vice president. So I think this is also a good time to transform the office of vice president, to transform it into something that has more autonomy, where you can help that person, the person that is to be the future leader of the Democratic Party, build their brand, right? And I think that that's something that all administrations should take into consideration moving forward. So that's reason number 4 why I believe Donald Trump will win the election on November 5th. Reason number 5, I believe that Kamala Harris simply did not have enough time to introduce herself to the electorate. Not having the full year on the campaign trail as the number 1 on the ticket, that was just brutal for voters to feel relatable to her. Most people have 9 to 12 months to be able to assemble, to build your brand. They usually have a primary campaign that they're able to really introduce themselves to the electorate. And she had 3-4 months. And it's really unheard of, right? Especially in modern day politics, presidential politics. So that was a concern, that she was not able to get herself out there long enough. Donald Trump has a ceiling. His ceiling is 47-48%. Kamala Harris doesn't have a ceiling. Kamala Harris can hit 50-51% in swing states, no problem. But that's on the basis of making sure that she's able to actually get out there and introduce herself to the people with enough time to spare. So that's the big problem that I think happened, was that she just did not have enough time to introduce herself. That's reason number 5. I believe Donald Trump will win the 2024 election. Reason number 6, Donald Trump had a strong grassroots game. It was a long game. In 2021, people started putting up those Biden did this stickers at gas pumps. Trump ones popped up too. They popped up saying, I'll fix this. I'm the one to fix this. Miss me yet? Those stickers were on gas pumps all throughout central PA, Pittsburgh. Throughout the country, these were popping up. And this was years in advance of the 2024 election. Trump's diehard supporters, they were meticulously planning this. because they knew he was running again. And they were able to set things in motion and play the long game very well and effectively. And people saw those stickers. People had that in the back of their mind, that they wanted change, and change was going to come by moving away from the current administration. That's reason number 6. I believe Donald Trump will win the 2024 election. Reason number 7, it's a numbers game. Some of the swing states have had Republican voter registration booms, massive booms. And don't forget, rural parts of Pennsylvania, they've actually have Democrats registered there who signed up to become Democrats, to vote for JFK, to vote for LBJ, half a century ago, right? But they have Trump signs in their yard right now. So you have to account for the fact that there are certain Democratic numbers that aren't 100% accurate. Democrat in certain parts of Pennsylvania, for instance, doesn't equal an automatic Kamala Harris vote, right? So the GOP numbers game, like I said, in Pennsylvania and other swing states, that's something that I kind of started sounding the alarm on in 2020, saying Republicans they're strengthening in the numbers. But since 2020, it's gotten so much worse. Much worse in Western Pennsylvania. So I hate to say it, I don't want to think it, that Pennsylvania could be coming and shifting more into an Ohio than into a Virginia, for instance, and becoming more red, more entrenched with red. And we'll see what happens on Tuesday the 5th when it comes to the final numbers in PA. But if it is Trump plus 2% or more, that's going to be massive problems for the Democratic Party nationally, even more so than just in the state of PA. So we'll see what happens there with the numbers. That has nothing to do with the candidates. It has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. It's simply math. If you have more people in these states who are registering as Republican, then they're going to catch up eventually, right? You could run Barack Obama. You could run JFK, right, in Ohio today and probably wouldn't win. It's just math. We know that Philly has shifted a bit to the right. The suburbs have gotten more blue, a lot more blue. But if you can't keep up with the influx of GOP voters in the rest of the state, then you're done. You're simply done. And you're going to have a hard time getting across the finish line. So that's reason number 7. I believe the numbers issue really helped Donald Trump be able to, what I believe will be a victory on November 5th, 2024. And finally, reason number 8, I believe Donald Trump will win the election over Kamala Harris is national polls. This is the one area. You notice I didn't mention state polls. I didn't mention state polls at all in this. I'll mention polling one time, and that's for national. I've long said that national polling for Kamala Harris should have her up 4 points. 4 points for her to feel comfortable, for her to feel like she has insurance, for her to feel like she will be perfectly fine in the swing states. 2 days before the election, as I'm speaking to you, NBC has the national poll tied. I think ABC has Kamala up 3 nationally. Another one had Kamala up 1 in the past 2 days. That number 4 is nowhere to be found. I think the national poll aggregate right now is Kamala plus 1. That, to me, based on this internal idea that she needs to be up 4 points nationally to be comfortable, that scares me. That scares me as someone who's voting for Kamala Harris and who wants her so desperately to become president of the United States. But as of November the 2nd, Kamala Harris led in the national polling aggregate by just 1%. And I don't think that's enough. It's simply not enough. Hell, if Trump were to eke it out and win the national vote, if he wins the popular vote, that's going to be a 300-plus electoral college victory for Donald Trump. A slight lead of 1 to 3 points for Kamala. I think that 9 out of 10 times indicates a Trump victory. That's reason number 8. The national polling data, I think, told the story all along as to why Donald Trump was the favorite and I believe will win the 2024 presidential election. It's a reason why I believe Donald Trump will win the 2024 presidential election. As I said, this does not make me happy. This does not make me excited to talk about. This makes me sick to my stomach to have to go through these 8 points as to why I think Donald Trump will win the election. But let it be a warning sign, let it be an initiation of change for the Democratic Party to change their ways and be able to come back even better, even stronger, with a broader coalition in 2028. Godspeed America over these next 4 years of what I believe will be a Donald Trump presidency. Take care and good night.